the moment everything changed in court. You could feel the difference the second she walked into the courtroom. This wasn't going to be a typical day filled with legal jargon and tired arguments. Something was different. The room packed with lawyers, reporters, and family members fell silent. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Even the buzzing of phones seemed to pause. All eyes shifted toward the young girl who had just walked in, Teyana Taylor and Iman Shumpert's daughter. She wasn't accompanied by cameras. There were no microphones in her face. Just a child, standing in a space built for adults, about to speak her truth. The courtroom had been buzzing with tension for weeks. Iman had been fighting hard for full custody of their daughter. His legal team had painted Teyana as unpredictable, overly emotional, and unfit to care for their child. They claimed she wasn't providing the stability that a young girl needed. That image of Teyana had been passed around like a headline, unstable mother versus responsible father. But when their daughter stepped up to testify, something shifted fast and hard. You could almost hear the sound of that carefully built narrative collapsing like a house of cards. She didn't come in swinging. She didn't speak with anger or fear. Her voice was steady, her tone sincere. No drama, just honesty. "Mom takes care of me," she said. "Even when she's sad." That one sentence hit the courtroom like a shockwave. You could see pens stop moving. Lawyers froze mid-sentence. Iman's jaw clenched so tightly it looked like he might break a tooth. Teyana, sitting nearby, placed her hand over her chest and took a deep breath, clearly trying to keep her tears from falling. There was nothing showy about this moment. No theatrics. No carefully crafted performance. Just a child telling the truth as she saw it, and it changed everything. For months, Iman's legal team had tried to control the story. They told the court Teyana was distracted by her new relationship, that her home wasn't safe, that her emotions made her a liability. But standing there, their daughter calmly undid all of that. Even the officers guarding the courtroom doors, usually still and unreadable, shifted ever so slightly. Everyone was tuned in. One attorney later admitted, "I've never seen a room get that quiet so fast." And what made it so powerful was that the little girl wasn't attacking her dad. She wasn't angry. She didn't blame. She simply shared what made her feel safe, what made her feel cared for. And that said more than any 30-page legal document ever could. Then, as the room sat in stunned silence, she added something that no one expected. "Mom's friend is really nice to me. He makes me feel safe." She didn't say a name. She didn't offer details. But everyone in the room knew who she was talking about: Aaron Pierre, the man Teyana had quietly been dating. The same man Iman's lawyers had labeled a distraction, an unnecessary figure in their daughter's life. You could feel a ripple move through the courtroom. Not a loud one, just a subtle change in posture, a few eyes glancing toward the back of the room. Aaron was sitting there. Still. Silent. No suit, no speech, no effort to be noticed. He didn't try to be a replacement father or make the moment about him. He simply showed up. And that, oddly enough, spoke volumes. That stillness? That quiet support? It carried more weight than anything he could have said out loud. Meanwhile, Iman looked shaken. Not because his daughter had insulted him, she hadn't, but because she didn't say what he might have hoped to hear. Or what he might have needed. His face went pale. He didn't blink much. One reporter tweeted, "Iman looked like a man who just realized the rules of the game changed and he didn't know the new ones." And that's exactly what had happened. The courtroom wasn't supposed to go this way. Iman's team had rehearsed arguments, memorized objections, and prepped strategies. But they hadn't accounted for one thing: their daughter's truth. And her truth didn't follow their script. When she mentioned feeling safe around her mom's boyfriend, Iman's team snapped into action. They objected, saying it was inappropriate for a child to talk about adult relationships during testimony. But the judge gave them a long look and said simply, "The emotional context matters." That wasn't just a legal decision. It was a message. The court was willing to hear the whole truth, no matter how uncomfortable. From that moment on, things got real. The girl didn't launch into dramatic stories. Instead, she offered small but powerful glimpses into her daily life. Like how her mom still helped with homework even when she was crying. Or how Teyana made pancakes for her after a fight with Iman the night before. These were just little moments, but they painted a bigger picture, a home that may not have been perfect, but was full of love and effort. Iman's team looked rattled. They whispered to each other, shuffled papers, passed notes. But Iman didn't even look at the paper handed to him. His eyes were locked on his daughter, listening as she unknowingly tore down the argument they had spent months building. Reporters were typing non-stop, trying to catch every word. This wasn't about which parent had more money or a cleaner public image. It was about trust. And the girl made it clear who she turned to when things got hard. When she talked about overhearing arguments, Iman's lawyers objected again. They said it was traumatic, that kids shouldn't be exposed to these issues. But again, the judge let her speak. Then she said something that hit everyone deep. "I don't like it when they fight. But Mom always tells me it's never because of me." That landed like a punch to the gut. The judge nodded slowly. Teyana wiped her eyes. Iman sat stiff, a vein bulging in his neck. Most people thought the girl would speak briefly, say she loved both parents, and step down. But she stayed. She kept talking. She shared thoughts that turned the courtroom into something softer, more intimate. Almost like pages of a private journal were being read aloud. She never said anything mean about her father. But she also didn't paint him as a safe space. And that absence? It was loud. Aaron Pierre stayed seated through it all. Never spoke. Didn't react. But when the girl mentioned him, his only visible reaction was a tiny shift in posture, like someone trying hard not to cry. And somehow, that silence was louder than any argument in the room. By the time the girl finished her testimony, the entire energy had changed. The polished legal strategies had been replaced by something raw. Something real. And when the judge thanked her for her bravery, another hush settled over the room. Not from shock but out of respect. Later that day, a courtroom sketch of Iman went viral. It showed him with his face buried in his hands, posture slumped. Like a man who realized he'd lost more than just a custody case, he'd lost control of the story. Social media lit up with reactions. Some posts joked, saying, "When your daughter hits you harder than the judge ever could." Others were more serious, calling the moment a reckoning, a wake-up call that no amount of spin could fix. But underneath the memes, people were paying attention. Not to a legal loss, but to a child finally being heard. Support for Teyana flooded in fast. Hashtags like Brave Queen and Protect Black Girls trended within hours. TikToks broke down the testimony like a true crime documentary. People showed up outside the courthouse with signs and shouts of support. This wasn't just about winning custody. It was about finally seeing Teyana for who she was, a mother who never stopped trying, no matter how much she had been criticized. And her daughter's words proved it. An inside source from Teyana's team said they walked out of court with a new kind of confidence. One friend posted, "She didn't coach her kid. She listened to her. There's a difference." That idea caught on. This wasn't manipulation. It was honesty. Real, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Iman's side didn't handle it well. Some family members allegedly called the judge reckless for letting the girl speak. Others claimed she had been coached, but there was no sign of that. Her words weren't polished or rehearsed. Her voice cracked. She fidgeted. She glanced at her mom for reassurance. It all felt incredibly real. Legal experts went on morning shows the next day. One said, "Kids rarely testify, and when they do, it almost never changes the outcome." But this time, it did. This time, it changed everything. The judge didn't give a ruling that day. He just thanked the girl again and said more time was needed. But his acknowledgement, his willingness to listen, was already a major shift. Outside, as supporters cheered, Aaron Pierre slipped out the side quietly. No interviews. No grandstanding. Just quiet support. And in a courtroom full of noise, that quiet loyalty stood out the most. For Teyana, this wasn't just about a custody battle. It was about being seen not as a headline, not. And that moment in court reminded everyone this wasn't just a legal battle. It was a truth finally heard. A little girl spoke from the heart, and it shook the room more than any lawyer ever could. Whether the final decision goes in Teyana's favor or not, she walked in as a mother fighting for her child and walked out with something stronger: validation. No rehearsed lines. No PR spins. Just truth. If this touched you, drop a comment, like, and don't forget to subscribe. Because stories like this, they matter. And sometimes, the quietest voices speak the loudest.